Welcome to Spotlight on the Greenville Chamber and CVB. I'm Sally Bird, President of the Greenville Chamber.
Hi, I'm Milton Babb, Director of Tourism and Marketing. I think maybe a good way to start off our show is to tell the viewers a little bit about what a Chamber of Commerce does, because there are a lot of misconceptions about that.
There are most decidedly a lot of misconceptions, but I want to tell you, first of all, you don't have to worry about taking notes. There won't be a quiz at the end of this, but we do want to share some of the things that we know about chambers of commerce, and particularly ours. One of those is that, in the 25 years that I've been involved with chamber work, one thing that I have learned absolutely is that there are more people who do not understand what a Chamber of Commerce does than there are people who do understand what we do.
I can tell you for sure, I spent many years as a reporter for our local newspaper, and I covered a lot of chamber events, but it wasn't until I went to work at the chamber that I really got an in-depth understanding of what all we do in the community.
And I think that that's very much true for a lot of people who think that they know something about what we do. But the truth of the matter is we have one very basic premise. We are a membership organization. Our businesses pay dues to be a part of the chamber, and therefore our primary responsibility is to make sure that those members are getting the kinds of things that help them to do business as well as they can in our community.
It's been said, and I think it's true, that a town that doesn't have a chamber will soon find a need to create one because of all the benefits that accrue to an organization like that.
It's absolutely true, and if you even look at the small communities in our area that are beginning to try to put a Chamber of Commerce together, you know that that's true. It's also absolutely true that pretty much, I think, any thriving community that you could show me anywhere in the United States, anywhere in the world, I can also show you a pretty active Chamber of Commerce in that same community.
It creates sort of a good circle of life, you might say, because if you have a sound economic base, that will eventually result in a better quality of life, which also attracts more business.
It truly does, and the quality of life and the business go hand in hand so much that really is an equation that we can use to kind of sum it all up, which is basically if you have no business equals no jobs. No jobs equals no income. No income equals poor quality of life. Poor quality of life equals an environment that's fairly unhealthy. An unhealthy environment, again, equals poor quality of life. Poor quality of life equals no business. No business equals no jobs, and so it goes on and on.
And even so, with those things being said, another misperception that some people have is they will call the chamber and say, well, what have you done? What business have you brought to town? They don't really know that we are not a business recruiter.
That's exactly right, and that is one of the primary misconceptions. We are very fortunate in this community that we do have a wonderful relationship with the Greenville Board of Development, whose job it is to do exactly that, and they do a fine job in that. But our part of that, as we work with them, is pretty much to make the businesses who are here happy to be here, as well as to make the community seem attractive to those businesses that we'd like to move here.
Of course, we deal with our members and other businesses on a daily basis, and we also have occasion to deal closely with the city. And maybe that's why people also develop a misperception that the chamber is actually a branch of the government. People call and ask us about, I've got a pothole on this street, or what can you do about my utility service, or something like that.
Well, and we do try to help with those issues, particularly if they're businesses, but you're right, we are not a part of the government. I don't know if it's the name chamber or the commerce part of it that makes people think that we must be, but people often ask me what it's like to work for the city, and I really don't have an answer for that.
Yeah.
But the other part of it is we also are not the Better Business Bureau, and we do get those kinds of calls on a regular basis as well. The primary difference between us and them is that we represent the interests of the business community, and the Better Business Bureau represents the interests of the general public, which is not to suggest that we don't care about the general public. It's just that we don't have any kind of authority or relationship with the business such as the Better Business Bureau does. If they renege on a contract, or if they do something that a customer doesn't think is correct, there really isn't anything that we can do about it. We refer it to the Better Business Bureau.
Now, the Greenville Chamber, I think officially, they date it the present incarnation anyway of the Chamber of Commerce as being 1950. But even previous to that, there's a organization in history called the Greenville Booster Club. It goes back about 100 years or more, and so the work in our community has gone on for quite a long time.
And if anybody's going to be able to find out when everything really started here, I'm sure it's going to be you, Milton, because we know how you like to dig up those roots from our history, and that's very important. And I believe that we probably had some kind of an organization here prior to 1950. Booster clubs, of course, we generally think about athletics, but
Well,
I guess in a sense it was to boost the business in the area,
that's
so
right.
that does make some sense for it to be there. The most important thing that I feel is that we have approximately 600 members right now, and that's really a good amount for this size community, and we're very proud of that. And what we like to believe is that it's so important for you out there to support those businesses who support your community.
well, and speaking of that, we in the modern world now, we maintain a list of our membership even on our website, which is updated daily. If somebody becomes a member of the Chamber of Commerce, it doesn't take months or years before somebody notices you. You'll become immediately on our website, and then soon in our annual directory, which we're kind of putting the finishing touches on right now. It's our membership directory and visitors guide.
Absolutely, and in that membership directory, a couple of things that are important about that. I like to think about that as a buyer's guide because, as I said, I think that it's important that we support those businesses that in turn support the community. But it makes it really very easy for people to be able to go on our website or to look in our directory. If they know the name of a business and they want to know something more about it, they can look it up by alphabet listing. By the same token, each business is entitled to at least 2 categories, and they can have more. So if you're looking for a plumber or an insurance company or a retail store or what have you, you can go in and look under the categories, and you'll be able to find, we believe, a good business in that way.
And it's also it's a 4-color magazine, sort of our premier publication in the community. It showcases our quality of life. It talks about our history. And we have a lot of great photos in there. Speaking of which, we have some photos here that show some Greenville businesses from not so very long ago.
Absolutely, and I think that maybe one of these days we'll have to do a retrospective directory that could be kind of an interesting look at what the advertising was like in those places in those days as well. So we'll talk about that in about a minute or two.
Well, welcome back to the studio. Through the miracle of television, we're not only able to bring you some of those great photos from the 1950s, but we have a couple of chamber members here whose membership in our local chamber goes back at least that far.
Yes, we do, and we're really, really happy to welcome some of those members here with us. We want to start with Tubby Atkisson from Atkisson Florists and James Handley from Hilliard Florists, both members since the 1950s, and Luann Dickens from Greenville Floral and Gifts, who we were trying to establish whether or not she was even born in the 50s. But anyway, we are so pleased to have all of you here with us today to be talking about what it's like to be in business in Greenville and what it has meant to you to be a member of the Chamber as well. And we just kind of want to start with some basic information about what your business was like when you first started. And Tubby, you started in 1913, as I recall.
I didn't start. Thank you, though. I wasn't here. Jay's parents started our florist in 1913, yes.
And what was it like that you know from there? I know you weren't there, but tell us what you know about the business way back then.
Well, I think one of the neatest stories, it would also give you an idea of what the times were like. In the original little journal or ledger, The first sale they made was for a funeral spray, and it was $2.25. No, $2.50. I'm sorry.
Oh.
And it was a big difference. And it was
30, I
delivered
guess.
on a bicycle. Jay's father delivered it on a bicycle, and to me that tells you a lot about both delivery and cost and so forth. And many of those flowers they had grown, that they had in the beginning. They had small greenhouses where they grew a lot of their own flowers, simply because you either got them by train, by train, not bus. Eventually by bus, but
You think the way that gas prices are going, you might have to go back to bicycle delivery?
oh, it might be coming soon.
And where was that? Was it in downtown Greenville?
No, it
Or-
was out on Walnut Street, North Greenville. There was a city block, and eventually, but to begin with, they had their home and small greenhouses where they were growing the flower, and also then opened the retail shop.
Okay, and you came into the business.
When I married Jay in 1948, and however did not go to work at the store until early 50s when my boys were older. And I think from that very time, probably we've been chamber members.
And you've been an ambassador ever since, I'm guessing.
For Greenville, yes, sir.
Yes, absolutely.
Hopefully, yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And James, tell us something about how Hilliard's got started.
Well, my grandmother had a friend in Campbell that loved to grow flowers. And she would just give them to people. And my grandmother, being a very staunch businesswoman, said, you know, you can sell those. You don't have to give them away. And she said, oh, I couldn't do that. And she said, well, I can for you. So the little lady's name was Bab, Ms. Bab. Said, well, you know, if you want to, I have them. So my grandmother went down to Perkins department store, Perkins Brothers, I guess it was,
Yeah.
department store, and made a deal. It happened to be close to Easter time. Made a deal that they would buy a little bouquets of flowers, probably mostly jonquils, and they would give a bouquet to each lady that came in to buy an Easter outfit. And it just kind of grew from there. And she started the business in 1938 in the front bedroom of her home on Washington Street, right next door to the old Sorrell's funeral home. And of course, I wasn't here at that time either. but I did grow up in the flower shop, and I took my naps in a flower box with a quill sling in them. And my whole life, I don't
Kind of
ever
in your
remember
blood.
not being around flowers or in the flower shop. But that's kind of how we got started.
And this was a lady whose name was Bab. Was this some connection here?
The Babs who are from Campbell probably are very distant cousins back
Is
to
that right?
Mississippi.
I hadn't even related.
Our
Milton
branch of
until-
the family was from the south part of the county, but
Yeah.
I think if you trace it back, they probably were.
And you weren't flower children.
No, not flower children.
Not way back then, anyway.
That
Oh,
came
goodness.
later.
And some of the early, do you have some of the interesting books and records like Adkison's
Yes,
has
in
from back
fact,
then?
we recently found some, and it's amazing that you could, you know, sell something for $2.50 and actually make money on it, you know. But now I don't ever remember us delivering on a bicycle, but we did have. I wish we had saved that old neat van from the late '40s, early '50s. Be a neat delivery van to restore, but I do remember going with my grandfather down to the Katy Depot and picking up flowers that would come on rail cars on ice, and then we'd bring them back and put them in our ice box. That I think it was a New Ice Company, a gentleman that would bring on a horse. He had a horse and wagon, and he would deliver ice, and they had a large quilt that would cover up the ice to keep it from melting, and he would bring our ice 2 or 3 times a week as we needed it.
And
they
in
delivered
some of
to
the
us.
106-degree weather that we have in this community.
And we
that
didn't have air
still
conditioning
kept
then
it
either.
Amazing.
Luann, your history in the floral business may not go back to ice and quilts, but tell us, since the time you've been in, you know, how kind of things might have developed in the floral business.
Right, not quite that far back, but I started out in high school working and just answering the phone, waiting on the front, and it seemed real interesting to me, so I started coming in after school working. And I got into it that way and decided I'd go to school and take some classes to learn about it, and did that all one summer. And then started working at the shop. Worked there for a couple years and decided to open up a shop of my own. And so that worked real good because had 3 kids, and so all 3 kids have grew up in the back room of a flower shop. But we moved out here to Texas, and it was a little bit behind times, a little bit slower, which I kind of liked, and being out of the big town. So we, decided to open one here in Greenville, and I've been here 21 years, but I've been in the business for 35 years.
And tell me what you've seen change, maybe in customers' taste or how you have to approach your business.
Right. Well, I like the small town a whole lot better than the big town because I was right in Phoenix. And the smaller town is a little bit behind times. It's not the big high-style type arrangements that we were doing back there, but it's getting here more and more so. And they like, a little bit wilder things now than what they used to be, the same little roundy-moundy arrangements, I think, that we all remember. But I still like some of those myself.
James, so how about things that you've seen change
Well,
recently?
yeah, things have changed. The flowers have changed. Our flowers are so much fresher now because, like we were talking about, having on Railway Express on ice, and they were probably cut a week before that in California or Florida. And now we'll get flowers in on Monday that were growing in South America or Europe or Southeast Asia 3 days before. Because of air freight, we just get them just so quick, and flowers last much longer. Plus, we have learned how to process them better and better refrigeration, and our flowers are much fresher and last much longer now than they did when I was younger.
And do you do this through, are there major wholesalers that you work through, or what is do you all order from the same places, or if you want the best roses, for example, how do you know where you're getting the best roses from?
I'll try to answer that. With all wholesalers, like our Dallas wholesalers, get, let's just say, roses from all those different places James mentioned, so that some of the wholesalers may be getting theirs from the same grower, wherever that grower might be. So I guess you'd say most of us, I don't know that we have a loyalty to a particular wholesaler. I know what we do is try to use more than just one. But essentially they get their, if it's Ecuador, all of our wholesalers in Dallas might have Ecuador roses that day. So I don't know how you all would answer that, but.
Tubby, is it true that Atkinson Florist actually was a wholesaler at one time of poinsettias?
At one time back in, I'd say the 30s, it was retail, wholesale, green plants, greenhouse. Also, there was a nursery operation where we had fields, and that even after I came in 48, we had those fields. In fact, Jay's degrees in landscape architecture. But there was nursery, wholesale, greenhouse, and retail. And when Jay and I purchased it, we didn't feel we could do all of those things. So we got rid of what you obviously wouldn't keep retail.
Well, didn't Mike Atkinson, wasn't he in charge of the greenhouses and
Yes,
the
Jerry's
wholesale
family,
part?
supposedly Mike Atkinson, the brother's first degree was in floriculture. And he was to do the greenhouses. And then he decided to go to medical school. And that's when we did.
Because we used to buy plants from
Right.
Atkinson's. I mean, we traded with them years ago, and we used to get our poinsettias and,
yeah.
and a lot of our blooming plants from them. And I remember
And-
Mike when he was there, and
yeah.
then of course then when he got his medical degree, I took my children to him.
When we had the nursery, I keep talking about trains, Sears at Roebuck was one of the biggest customers, and they would send train cars in, and we'd load plants and they'd send them to their center in Memphis, Tennessee.
You know, some of the viewers might be a little bit surprised that in one respect y'all are all competitors, but you're sitting here together like family. Tell me a little bit how that works and what maybe is, do you consider yourselves the competitors, or is it more the big box retailers these days?
Who wants to go first?
Well,
Luann?
we were talking earlier that we don't consider ourselves as competitors of each other, but our competitors are the large chains, the grocery stores, the box retailers, as we describe them. They are our competitors because it's tough to compete with the world's largest retailer.
And what do you do? What do you do to distinguish
I didn't say it.
yourselves?
I was watching.
Well, we just try and offer the service. I mean, we're a service florist, and a lot of people, you know, realize that and see it. And also the quality of the flowers and everything, of course, are a lot fresher. And that's a couple things that's real important to us, because we've got to offer that where they can't, but we can't compete with them because they can buy such large things and we can't. So we're just the little family-owned florists that are trying to survive.
And they're open 24/7, some of them, which
Yes,
also
right.
is
Well, sometimes
the
they want us to
convenient
be, and we are open.
Yeah, I'm sure
Pretty
sometimes you
different
feel
hours
like
to get
you
work.
We're
are.
on call, aren't we?
Yeah, we
Sometimes
sure
you
are.
I
feel
said
like you are.
earlier, in some aspects, I could hardly be in business without these people because we do not have a wholesaler in Greenville. And so if any of us have to offer is service. And particularly say at the time of a death in a family, if they want a particular flower and we don't have it, I always know I can call either of these folks and we borrow back and forth. And to me, that's a blessing. I'm glad I like them as well. But I really do feel family. And I think all of us, certainly service is the one thing we have. Plus, we have what do you call them? Big box stores?
The big box retailers.
One
typically.
difference, we are trained in the care of cut flowers. Therefore, we know how to treat them better. They're fresher and get attention every day. And that's why, one reason I think the freshness is there also, because we now have ways to treat those flowers.
Are there certain flowers that are much more popular today than used to be, and are things that have fallen out of favor over the years?
Well, there's some flowers you can't even buy anymore. The little Marguerite daisies, gosh, we've sold a ton of those, and you can't even buy them now, hardly. The wholesalers, they're not profitable for the wholesalers to grow, so they just don't grow them. And, you know, everybody's got to make a profit, and if the growers can't make a profit on it, they just don't grow them. That's one thing that I know we used to have specials every summer, you know.
Yeah,
and,
no more.
and
Yeah.
and they smell terrible, you know, and you get tired of working with them, but they were good and they lasted and they were inexpensive, and but I think roses are by far the most popular flower, particularly with men. They're the most
Yeah.
popular flower because
But what's the average lifespan of a good rose?
Depends on how you care for it when you
yeah,
get
it does.
Well-
We're dumping on the customer just a little bit because we are in something called chain of life, which means that from the time a rose is cut, I'll use roses, through that process, the wholesaler, the florist, it's called chain of life, a particular way you treat those flowers. And if the customer gets them the little tag that says water me, most folks pay no attention to that. So I personally wouldn't guarantee you a certain time because I don't know if you're going to put it on top of a stove, if you're going to water it, or how you're going to care for it. I'd say should be, I've just given a sermon, have I?
Sounds good.
We enjoyed it
Probably a week.
yeah.
If you care
5 to
for them
7 days.
properly.
5 to 7 days.
But a lot of
okay.
times we'll have flowers that we don't feel that we can sell, and we'll take them home and we'll enjoy them for a week at home.
Yeah.
I
After,
want
you
to
know,
shift gears just a little bit here and ask y'all how you feel your business fits in with the Greenville Chamber, and how affiliation with other business people assists you in serving your customers.
Well, I'll just say that I would hate to have a business without our chamber, without your support. You've given, certainly through the years, educational opportunities. To me, the main thing is the education that you offer your members plus the other benefits. But to me, the education and the networking with other people that I would not have an opportunity to network with.
The networking is important to me because we're all in business and we're working during working hours, so we don't get to visit with some of the other businesses in town. And with things like business after hours and the function that Chamber has really helps us to meet other people and get to know other people and
I agree completely.
Luann, you're very involved with our chamber. Tell us about some of the things that you do.
Well, I have met a lot of wonderful people, and the networking part has been real good. Of course, I'm on the board and with the ambassadors, and I've just had a lot of fun, met a lot of really neat people, and networking, business after hours, business expos. You all have just a whole lot to offer for the businesses here in town, which really helps all of us.
Well, and you've all been ambassadors, I understand, and James, I'm not going to mention what you mentioned earlier about male versus female ambassadors. We think our female ambassadors do a great job, but
But you're saying the men,
as
you don't get to drink whiskey and smoke cigars anymore since the women came in?
well, now we never did drink whiskey and smoke cigars, but we did drink a little beer and have a lot of good shrimp.
okay, that's good enough. But also some of the other things, I know when you help us as ambassadors of the chamber and when you help us with our membership drives and so forth, and you hear people saying, well, I can't get to the networking events and so forth. Tubby, as you mentioned, the education that the chamber tries to help with the education community
I
and
like
work with
the
the school
variety
district and
of
so forth.
educational opportunities you offer. It covers every aspect, I think.
We like to think that too, and thank you for mentioning it. We do some other things with outreach to our government, our various government agencies and elected officials and so forth, so that there are some other aspects to what we do that we hope is also another reason why you continue. And Luann, you're on our board of directors right now, and have you two served on our board of directors?
Yeah, I was
thought
chairman,
so.
but I can't tell you what year.
Okay. Well,
You can't
That's
tell us or
okay,
you won't
Debbie.
tell us.
Chairman of the
can or
board,
won't.
way back there.
Way back when.
Yeah, and when I was first on the board was when they held election by ballot. You were nominated and there were 2 or 3 for each opening, and then the ballot was mailed in.
Oh, wow, that was a long time ago.
It-
No, just kidding.
Anyway,
Yes.
yeah, I think probably I was chairman around maybe 78 or something on the board.
Well, the chamber, one of the things that I like about the chamber is that it's someone that you can call if you have a problem. Y'all might not be able to solve it, but you can sure tell us where to go or put us in the right direction. And in small businesses, we have, shoplifting, we have hot checks, we have those things, and then political items too. That, if something's not going on right with our government, you all can help us find
We
the
try real
answers.
hard.
You can help us find the answers, and
Right,
that's
absolutely.
one of what I consider a very important goal of the chamber,
Excellent.
to help
Well,
their
thank
members.
you. And Luann?
I really didn't realize how much the chamber did and how good it is to be involved until I started getting more involved.
Right.
And the more involved I got to see all the little extra things that that y'all do for us. And that's what I try and tell people that are not seeing it when I say try and get them a little more involved and really see what's out there.
You heard it here first, folks. I couldn't think how we could end on a better note. This has been a whole lot of fun for us, and I know that we could go on and on and on talking about the shrimp and the ambassadors and the fun stuff that you used to do, but we hope that you're still enjoying your membership, and we're so pleased and happy to have you as a member at Chamber, each of you. Thank you for being here
Thank all of
today
you
as
for
well.
being here. Enjoyed the meeting.